First class isn't for you. Silence her.
The cabin smells like coffee and cheap perfume. The engines hum a steady, indifferent note. A woman laughs too loud, a cup clinks. Then a voice cuts the air clean as a blade. First class isn't for you. The sentence lands like a brick. It finds Aisha by the window, 22, quiet, bright-eyed, ticket folded in her hand, fingers steady as if to prove she belongs. She does not move. Her breath is small and sharp. The words hang in the cool cabin light and already feel old, as if they have lived in that voice for a long time. The flight attendant's tone is flat. Practice makes policy sound kind, but the words are not kind. They are a verdict wrapped in navy and a name tag. A hush comes down, heavy and brittle. Heads turn like the slow sweep of a metronome. Eyes meet, then look away. A man in a tailor-made suit watches with his chin lifted, palms resting on leather that costs more than a month's rent. He breathes silence like air. Power sits in his posture and warmth pours off him, like a sun that has never set. He looks away because he has never had to look at the cost of his choices. Aisha opens her mouth to ask a simple, ordinary question. Why? The syllable is small, a child's voice on a battlefield. She does not finish. Before her question can land, the captain's voice fills the cabin, official and smooth. It gives rules, it gives procedure. It softens the sting with language that sounds like law. This is policy, the captain says, and procedure becomes armor. The cabin listens to the captain because an official voice can make cruelty sound like order. The announcement legitimizes the blow. The hush in the cabin is not peace. It is weight. It presses on Aisha's ribs like a hand. Around her, life continues in small, careless ways. A child fidgets unaware. A woman in first class tilts her head and checks her nails. A grandfather clicks his tongue. Someone focuses a phone, types a quick note, a tweet that will float away and be forgotten. Close on Aisha's hands. The boarding pass trembles in her fingers by the tiniest margin, a millimeter of motion that contains 1,000 things. The camera holds on the paper as if it were evidence in a tiny trial. Light from the small oval window spills across her cheek. There is a stain of brightness there, and a single tear pools in the corner of her eye like a secret the world almost kept. It does not fall. She lets it hold. It is an invisible weight she will carry like a name. Her mouth is a tight line. She breathes. The engines keep a steady thrum, the plane oblivious to the hush that has become a kind of trial. The flight attendant repeats the line with a practiced firmness. First class isn't for you. Each word is a small stone thrown into a quiet pond. Ripples spread. The man in the suit shifts. The ripple washes over him and he feels nothing. He has always sat where he wanted. He wears entitlement like a jacket. Around him, other passengers find reasons to look anywhere but at the wrong being done. Some look away because looking takes effort. Some look away because they feel the fear of being next. A grandmother clicks her tongue and says nothing. A young woman turns up a music player to drown the moment. The cabin becomes a theater where the real scene is happening in the space between the words and the silence. A voice in Aisha's head is loud now, not a voice of fear, a voice of something older. She remembers the morning her mother packed her bag. Hold your head, her mother had said, not as if you owe the world proof, but as if you carry your own light. The memory lands like a small shield. The memory gives her the smallest courage. She thinks of the ticket in her hand. She thinks of the tiny print that says she paid like everyone else. She knows what she paid with. She knows what it cost beyond money. She feels it in the way her name sits on a list, in how faces tilt away. The injustice is simple. It looks ordinary. It smells of coffee and fear. Yet ordinary does not make it small. Ordinary is how cruelty hides. A hush settles again, more watchful. The captain's announcement echoes like a gavel. The flight attendant's smile is thin. The man in the suit smiles, private and brief, like a cat that has found a warm lap. He does not see the tear that will not fall. He does not see the way the cabin has become a courtroom, how rules have been called to stand in front of the moral law and found wanting. The passengers shift. A woman stows a bag with trembling hands. A phone screen lights a face with white glare. Someone whispers the phrase into a private call. The word policy spreads like a shield for the ones in uniform. It is quick at protecting those who speak from power. Aisha's jaw tightens. Her chest feels strange, as if small stones are being poured into it. She could shrink. She could let the moment pass. She could fold into the soft air of anonymity and let the sentence become part of the hum. But something else wakes. It is not loud. It is Edie, like a river finding its path through roots. She will not allow her dignity to be stamped into the carpet under anyone's shoe. The feeling starts as a small ember in her chest. It grows. She thinks of the look on the billionaire's face, a look that says he has always assumed belonging is for those who can afford it. She thinks of the flight attendant, trained to deliver the world's rules with a smile. She thinks of the captain's smooth voice that can turn exclusion into compliance. She thinks of the woman who watched with bored eyes. She thinks of the grandmother who had clicked her tongue. She thinks of the quiet boy whose mouth had opened in surprise and then closed. Words form in her head. They do not need to be loud to matter. They need to be true. I paid for this ticket, she wants to say. I belong here. The statement is simple. It is not meant to tear apart the world. It is meant to stake a small claim of humanity. But the cabin is already a little different now. People have to choose. Some will stand with the shape of power that has always told stories about who belongs. Some will feel the collective hush and pretend it is peace. Some will look away and busy themselves with their devices. A few will look and feel the wrongness. Aisha folds the ticket back into her palm until the paper is almost warm from her skin. The tear clings like a small, honest thing. Her heart is loud. She breathes through it. She is learning what courage looks like without drums and banners. It is a steady, stubborn breath. She is learning that dignity is not a place in an aisle. It is a posture in a body and a truth in a voice. The cabin waits for what happens next. The tiny trial has moved from the recorded rules into the living room of people's hearts. The verdict is not yet written. But for the first time since the words were said, the silence shifts. It is no longer only the weight of authority. It is the uneasy noise of people deciding whether to be with the power that has always chosen or with the person who was told she could not belong. Outside, clouds pass in slow white waves. Inside, the plane breathes. The engines keep time. The captain's voice finishes and the flight attendant's smile does not deepen. The man in the suit returns to his private world, but Aisha's face has changed. Not outwardly. Not for the cameras that will only someday tell this brief story. It is a small change in the tilt of her chin, the set of her hands around a ticket, the steadying of a breath. She does not know the path that will follow. She only knows she will not leave this moment carrying the judge's words like a new name. The plane hums. Coffee cups rattle. Aisha holds her ticket as if it were a light. The trial has only just begun. The cabin tightens like a fist. Voices drop to whispers. The flight attendant paces the aisle slow and steady, polite and immovable, a lighthouse that keeps its light even when the sea roars. "Sir, please refrain." "Ma'am, it's policy." The words fall soft like cotton, but they stack up, heavy as suitcases on a conveyor. The billionaire's jaw is a line. He sits back, a king on vinyl, arms rested like a throne. His glance nudges people to look away. He owns the room with a look so practiced it feels like law. Aisha is small against the leather and the soft glow of first class. She is 22 and she holds herself like someone who learned to be careful. Malik leans close and hisses, the words quick and hot. "Say something." She does not. She watches the mother across the aisle. The mother's eyes are tired with small late nights and bottles and bus rides, and a hush that says the world keeps asking for more than she can give. The captain sits tall in his uniform, voice like varnish, clean and made to shine. Aisha reaches for her phone. Her thumb hovers like a bird over water. A choice breathes in that tiny space. Speak and be shouted down. Stay silent and let the moment harden into a stone she will carry. Her chest tightens. She thinks about the morning her mother taught her how to stand. She remembers the words and they work like a strap around her spine. The flight attendant's voice softens. "Miss, you're making other passengers uncomfortable." The billionaire snorts, a sound like a closed door. A man 3 rows back clears his throat with a big public noise that tries to make the world square again. Someone laughs, sharp as a nickel. Malik whispers, "Record it." Aisha lifts the phone. The screen wakes to her face, calm and small, and the red dot that means live begins to blink. She captures the hush. She captures the captain's smooth voice. She captures the billionaire's stare. The recording is a quiet witness. The cabin becomes a stage, and the little rectangle in her hand is a lamp that shows truth. Dialogue snaps like a dry twig. "We have rules," says the attendant. The words are smooth and practiced, a shield for authority. "I paid for my ticket," Aisha says, voice small but steady like S. Teal wrapped in silk, it is plain and honest. "Then show me the receipt," the attendant replies. The sentence blooms into silence. It is a simple test and its cruelty rings loud. A whisper floats, "She's right." Another voice answers, "He's not wrong." The cabin teeters like a seesaw, people shift in seats. Loyalties flicker like reading lights going on and off. The injustice swells and looks bigger now because other people can see it. It is no longer just about a seat. It is about who gets to belong. It is about the weight of a voice that has been refused. Malik leans forward, eyes hard. "Post it," he says, voice urgent. The billionaire smirks. He does not have to lift a finger. His power is a slow gravity. It pulls eyes and makes the small brave feel exposed. The flight attendant, trained to keep the ship smooth, moves with the ease of someone who has learned how to fold people into rules. "Sir, please cooperate." The words come softer but mean the same thing. Cooperation for him looks like silence for everyone else. The young mother wipes her hand across her face and looks away, embarrassed by the trouble and wanting only to keep the peace for her child. A man, too, rose up, taps his watch, impatient for a life beyond the narrow row of seats. A teenager hides behind headphones, the volume turned up to avoid the moral choice. Aisha's hands tremble on the phone at first, then steady. She thinks of receipts and tickets and what those pieces of paper really buy. She thinks of the small hours her mother worked and the number of times dignity had to be borrowed and paid back. Her voice finds a rhythm that is not loud. "I paid like everyone else," she says. It is not a demand for drama. It is a reminder that money is not the only thing that proves belonging. The attendant asks once more for proof, as if belonging were a thing to be stamped in black ink. The billionaire's smile becomes sharper. He leans in and says something under his breath that is caught only by the corner of a camera lens. It is the kind of thing that slips into the air and turns the room colder. The cabin divides quietly. Some look at Aisha and feel the wrongness like a stain. Some look away because fear makes them small. A few faces are curious, open like windows, waiting to see what will happen next. The phone in Aisha's hand records the faces, the tight smiles, the soft lies dressed up as policy. Malik's thumb hovers over the screen, ready to press post. Outside, clouds move slow and blind. Inside, the air is thin with questions. The captain's voice over the speaker is calm and official, the kind of voice that can make hard words sound fair. But fairness is not grown from uniformed speech. Fairness smells of equal treatment, the kind someone could touch with both hands. A woman in the back mutters that rules are rules and that a cabin is no place to make trouble. Her face is tired in a different way. She has learned that quiet keeps things running. An older man tightens his grip on his hat as if to hold himself together. The billionaire crosses his arms, satisfied that his look has done most of the work. He is certain the world will stand with him. He is certain that the plane and its rituals are built for people like him. He watches Aisha like he is reading a sign that says she knows her place. He is wrong to assume he can read the shape of another human life with a glance. A hush grows heavy and then cracks when Malik's thumb falls. The small click of a post being sent is soft, barely a thing you notice, but it is a line that once crossed cannot be erased. The video begins to move across screens, a ripple that will become a wave. People feel something shift when a private wrong steps into the light. You can see it in small changes. A hand that unclenches, a chin that lifts, a pair of eyes that decide to see. The cabin leans forward without moving. The young mother looks at Aisha, and for a single breath they make a small, private understanding. The captain's eyes find the camera light and his smile is practiced, but there is the faintest crack of worry. The billionaire's face tightens. His control feels like it is slipping through his fingers. He snaps a look that tries to call the room back to silence, but the sound is weaker now. The recording spreads like a rumor with a backbone. Someone murmurs, "That's not right." A hush of approval moves like wind. The flight attendant's hand lifts, hesitates, then lowers. Rules feel different when seen under a phone's red eye. The balance of power is less solid when witnesses can hold up a mirror. Aisha does not know what will happen next. She does not know if the post will break the wall or only graze it. She only knows this moment has already changed her. Her chin is higher now. Her breath is steady. Malik's shoulder brushes hers like a promise. The plane hums on, indifferent and loud. The world beyond the cabin is wide and waiting. But inside these rows, a small storm has gathered. It will eat. Or pass and leave a bruise, or it will break and wash something clean. The chapter ends with a finger tapping send and the soft sound of a world that must now decide whether to look away or to stand. The noise of the engines fills the pause and the screen light paints faces in blue. The cliff hangs, raw and electric. What will the world do when it can see this? The phone pings. One tap becomes two. Malik's laugh catches fire and the cabin leans without moving. A 15-second clip finds its feet and begins to run, a uniformed woman saying small words that feel enormous in the air. The screen glows, timelines fill. The billionaire's assistant fumbles with a phone that vibrates like a stuttered heart. The cabin changes in small, clear ways. A magazine snaps shut, a hand pauses over a sugar packet, a lipstick is left on a napkin like a quiet surrender. Aisha sits very still for a moment, eyes on the little rectangle that now carries her life into other rooms and other faces. Pride and fear are the same weight in her chest. Malik nudges her with a smile that is almost a dare. The clip grows before the plane lands, and with each play it takes on a voice not owned by those in uniform. Sympathy wakes in small acts. People begin to behave as if they remember a rule older than policy. Look at the wrong and name it. Then Aisha stands. Nobody expected that. The movement is simple and clean, like cutting a line of thread. She does not shout, she does not plead. She holds the boarding pass up the way a person holds a small flag. The paper is white, the ink black, her name clear. The camera lingers on her face because it must. She speaks once. Her voice is not loud. It is precise and low, like a bell tuned to truth. "This is my seat. I paid. Your words didn't speak to me. They spoke about me." The plane breathes out. The hush that follows is not the same hush from before. It is rawer. It is truer. There is a sound like breath held and released across rows. A woman behind Aisha begins to cry. A child asks plainly, "Why would she say that?" The child's question is like a small, honest flame that makes the rest of the cabin look down at the shadow they cast. The billionaire's profile fractures. He is no longer only a man in a suit. He becomes a symbol in a conversation he did not choose to join. His assistant leans in, lips moving fast. "You should say something." He tries to shape an apology and his words come out small and careful like coins dropped into a jar. The apology tastes of strategy. It is not the kind of thing that repairs a human bruise. The retired teacher in row 11 stands. His voice is a soft tool. He tells a short story about dignity, a memory from a life that wore suits made of hard work and protests that taught him how to keep his back straight. People nod. Heads incline. The flight attendant's shoulders sag a degree. The captain's tie looks suddenly like something a man might loosen when he thinks about truth. The viral clip has done more than show words. It has collected strangers into a chorus. Online, strangers add threads and tags like small lanterns thrown into a river. #seat for Asia starts to climb. People who do not share a city or a language begin to say the same thing, that dignity is not something you can hand out like candy. The clip travels through kitchens and buses and rooms where people are just waking up. Each play adds a little force. It is not a storm yet. It is a current that will pull on foundations. The billionaire watches his window reflection for the first time and sees more than a carefully composed profile. He watches an idea of himself being reshaped by the mirror of other people's eyes. The look on his face is not one of outrage anymore. It is confusion. He did not expect his image to be questioned. Aisha's standing is small and profound. She does not claim a victory. She claims her place. That claim forces choices. Some passengers murmur that rules must be kept. They speak the language of comfort and of not wanting to be the next thing in the spotlight. Others move closer, not physically, but in a way that matters. A mother reaches out and squeezes Aisha's hand without a word. A young man removes his headphones. The teacher's story hangs in the air like a light that will not go out. The flight attendant tries to recover her posture. She has been trained to smooth the world and make decisions look like mercy. But training does not teach how to meet a human who will not be made small. The billionaire's apology is offered through a thin smile that cannot touch the hurt. The words land and bounce. They do not find the place where dignity lives. His assistant watches the phone screens and counts the growing numbers like a man reading a report he cannot edit. He tries to coach a better line. Performance matters to them, but the moment now belongs more to witness than to show. Witness has a weight policy cannot lift. People begin to speak of other things, of fairness, of Bain. Scene, of the small human economies that money cannot buy. Someone says quietly that belonging is not rented by wealth. The phrase travels and settles on a few faces. The cabin is no longer a stage held by the wealthy. It is a room where ordinary people measure one another's humanity. Tension hangs at the back of the seat fabrics. The captain sits with his chin lowered and listens to the teacher and to the hum of screens that carry the truth out into a wider sky. He cannot make policy mean goodness. The flight attendant's smile cracks and a line of concern runs down her face like a small river. She is human in that moment, not a uniform. A few passengers begin to clap softly, then stop as if embarrassed by their own emotion. The sound is tiny but real. It is a small earthquake inside the plane. The billionaire's composure is a worn jacket that slips. His profile tightens and his hands find the armrests like a man clinging to a ledge. The viral clip has done what seeing does. It has made the private public. It has also done what truth does. It has asked people what side they are on. Some will look away. Some will adjust their collars and say rules are rules. Others will stand and tell the stories that make rules look wrong. Malik laughs again, but this time it is softer, like a pressure lifting. He posts more footage, a close shot of Aisha's face and her hand holding the ticket. The sound of his post is a click that will echo beyond the metal of the plane. The cabin watches the numbers climb. The world watches with it. A shift begins that does not flip overnight but that creaks, then yields. Aisha does not cheer. She breathes. She knows this moment is not an ending. She knows the change will be slow. She knows her name and hashtags will not be the whole story, but she also knows that standing asked other people a question they could not ignore. The woman behind her wipes tears with a napkin and meets Aisha's eyes. The child asks again in a new tone, "Is she okay?" And someone answers him with a story about fairness. The billionaire stares out of the window and sees not just clouds but the reflection of a man who must now reckon with being looked at. His power tilts, not broken but moved. The plane keeps moving forward, steady and loud. Outside, the sky is wide. Inside, a small, stubborn light has been lit. The chapter ends with people choosing, some to protect old comforts, others to name a new truth. The moral is simple and heavy. Dignity is not a privilege to be granted. It is a right to be kept. The work is only beginning, and for the first time, many will have to do it together. Image prompt 1, viral clip close-up. Ultra-realistic close-up of a modern smartphone screen held in a young black man's hand, Malik. The screen shows a 15-second video playback with a red recording dot and a paused frame of a uniformed black woman mid-sentence. Background: blurred airplane cabin interior with soft overhead lights. Mood lighting: dramatic, cool tones with a focused, warm glow on the phone screen, shallow depth of field, crisp skin texture, and reflected light on the phone glass. Expression action: hands slightly trembling, thumb hovering, tension visible in knuckles. Image prompt 2, cabin reaction wide shot. Wide cinematic shot of the airplane first-class cabin from aisle level showing passengers reacting. Some closing magazines, one hand frozen over sugar, a lipstick left on a napkin. Characters: diverse passengers, young mother, elderly man, suited billionaire, each in period-appropriate clothing. Setting: luxury first-class seats, overhead bins, window light. Mood lighting: natural cabin light with a subtle rim light on faces to emphasize emotion, shallow depth, slightly desaturated to create tension. Image prompt 3, Aisha standing with boarding pass. Intimate mid-close shot of Aisha standing in the aisle, holding her white boarding pass up. Details: Aisha, 22, dark hair in a low bun, plain shirt, expression calm and resolute, ink name visible on pass. Background: blurred faces turning toward her. Mood lighting: soft, warm spotlight on her face to suggest moral clarity, shallow depth to isolate her, high-resolution skin and fabric textures. Image prompt 4, emotional ripples. Close-up of a woman behind Aisha wiping tears with a napkin. Child beside her looks up, wide-eyed. Characters: weary young mother with tired eyes, small child with innocent curiosity. Setting: middle-class passenger row, window light casting gentle highlights. Mood lighting: warm, tender lighting with soft shadows, cinematic bokeh background. Image prompt 5, billionaire reflection fracture. Dramatic portrait shot of the billionaire watching his reflection in the airplane window. Details: sharp tailored suit, silver cufflinks, face half-lit, expression strained and confused. Setting: darkened window at dusk, cloud reflections. Mood lighting: cold, dramatic side light hitting jawline, deep contrast, ultra-detailed skin and fabric texture. Ease. Image prompt 6, teacher standing, voice of dignity. Medium shot of an older, retired teacher standing to speak, hands slightly raised, face lined with experience. Characters: retired black teacher wearing a simple sweater and collared shirt. Setting: cabin aisle with passengers listening, faces illuminated. Mood lighting: soft golden key light on the teacher, gentle fill to reveal listeners' faces, cinematic depth to show connection. Image prompt 7, flight attendant and captain reaction. Two-shot split composition, flight attendant with faltering posture on one side, captain loosening his tie on the other. Details: uniform details crisp, name tags visible, slight sweat or tension on brows. Setting: cockpit door in background, cabin blurred. Mood lighting: neutral cool tones with subtle warm highlights to humanize them, shallow depth emphasizing facial expressions. Image prompt 8 hashtag spread montage. Composite image of multiple hands holding phones showing the seat for Aisha hashtag trending, social feeds collaging together. Characters. Diverse hands of different ages, skin tones, nail details. Setting. Montage with blurred cityscapes and living rooms in background. Mood lighting. Vibrant screen glow on faces, high clarity on devices, dynamic shallow focus. Image prompt 9 final wide. Cinematic wide shot of the cabin after the turn, passengers leaning forward, some in quiet conversation. Aisha seated again with a small, steady look Malik beside her. Composition. Symmetrical rows, receding perspective, consistent character appearances. Mood lighting. Warm golden light from overhead pooling like a promise, shallow depth but clear facial textures, emotional and hopeful tone. The landing comes like a series of small drumbeats, wheels, brakes, the low creak of metal settling, and with it a rain of cameras and the thin chorus of rehearsed regret. He steps forward first because that is how power moves, into the light where the papers and the press can shape what looks like a story. His smile is practiced. His voice is smooth. He says the words that fit on a teleprompter: regret, values, lessons learned. The crowd breathes in the shape of apology they expect. But Aisha watches him the way a neighbor watches a house on fire, close enough to see the smoke, far enough to know the heat. She watches his hands. When he slips off his watch, there is a tremor. The metal slides across his palm and he holds it like he is setting down armor. For the first time, he is not only a line in a news report. He is a man with fingers that shake. He does not become a monster on paper. He becomes someone who must meet his own face in a mirror that other people have turned toward him. Aisha listens. She speaks once, not to wound, not to perform. She lists two things that have the simple dignity of a map. First, training for the crew, real and enforced, not a pamphlet or a 1-hour video, but something that changes how people see each other on the job. Second, a scholarship fund in the airline's name for young black travelers and flight crews, money that makes a path where there was only a gate. She refuses the easy hush money that would tuck the hurt under a carpet and call it settled. She refuses a private envelope in a private room. She wants structures changed. She wants the story of belonging rewritten so it applies to everyone. The room waits for the expected refusal, the petty counter, the cold claim that this is enough. He consults his assistant, mouth moving like someone rehearsing lines in a mirror. The assistant's face is a small thermometer of panic. Then, in a voice that surprises the air, the billionaire says he will fund it. He agrees to the program, there and then, with cameras catching a face that does not become perfect the moment the cameras roll. His apology is not a clean redemption. It is a messy, human thing that looks like the start of work rather than the end of a chapter. There are small scoffs around the microphones, the soft calculations of people who count headlines like banknotes. But there are also small gestures that feel like seeds. Someone in the crowd pockets a tear. A journalist leans forward and asks for details. He provides them haltingly, because accountability is harder when it is measured in bricks and budgets. The pilot, who has kept a professional distance like a shield, looks away and then down at his hands. The flight attendant who first spoke the words is quiet, her posture unmade by the sudden publicness of it all. She watches the billionaire sign on a line she will one day read in a press release. She does not smile right away. She is not ready to trust a headline the way some people trust a recipe. The cameras flash. The microphones shiver. But behind the noise, something begins to be built. Meetings, a list of instructors, a fund with a name that will not hide behind a logo. The first steps are clumsy, honest, and full of doubt. Months later, there is a plaque at an aviation academy. It is not gold or loud. It is a simple plate on a wall that reads a name that includes the word dignity. Sunlight slants across the letters in the morning and makes them look like they mean something more than the sum of their metal. A classroom nearby holds chairs in neat rows, but the air inside is different now. The flight attendant who spoke those words stands at the front of the room with a stack of notes and a voice that has learned the fine art of correction without humiliation. She teaches a class on language and power and how words can lift or cut. Her hands move slow. Her eyes watch faces change as comprehension slides in. People write in the margins. They learn the weight of phrase choices and how to make rules serve safety, not shame. The training is not punishment. It is practice, and it is seated in the steady belief that work can be better done when people are seen. The captain writes a memoir that reads like the confession of someone who once mistook order for right. His chapters are short and honest. He talks about the small decisions that add up to who you are, what you said, what you withheld, the times you leaned on comfort instead of justice. He writes about loosening his tie on flights where the press was not watching and deciding to listen. The billionaire, who first offered words that sounded like a script, sits in an auditorium years later with a program in his lap. He listens to students who read essays about belonging and about the tiny mechanics of kindness. He looks smaller in that room, not because he has been humiliated, but because he has found the place where the reaction of other people matters to him in a way it did not before. His hands do not tremble as much. He blinks when a young woman reads a line about having space to breathe on a plane, and he hears the economy of public apology being replaced by the slow, harder work of making amends that last. Aisha stands at graduation with a face calm as morning. She has learned how to make patience into power and grief into clarity. Her speech is not a victory lap. It is proof. She speaks of small things, of the way stations can be doors or walls, of how training can be more than a slogan, of how scholarships are not charity but a promise that talent will not be gated. Her voice is steady. Her sentences are short and land like planks to cross a river. The audience listens, and some faces in the crowd bend with an ache that looks like learning. The flight attendant who once said the wrong words now sits in the front row, hands folded, eyes wet with relief. She sees the classroom named for dignity and thinks of the small acts of correction that built it. The billionaire listens too. He hears what his money built and cannot buy the feeling that comes from being part of something healing. The final shot is quiet and simple. A boarding pass on a table, the ink black and clear, a name printed in a calm font. The pass lies beside a cup of coffee that has gone cold and a pen with a smear of ink. It is not cinematic in the way a movie pretends something important. It is important because it is ordinary. The lesson it holds is quieter than a hashtag and heavier than a headline. Dignity, the story says, is not something to be policed by announcements. Rules mean very little when they are used to sort people by worth. Power can be corrected. The powerful can be taught to watch the smallness of their acts become public light and then to change. Courage, in the end, is ordinary. It is not always loud. It is the steady refusal to be invisible. It is the choice to ask for structure instead of a check. It is the way many small people decide together that change is possible. The plane has landed, but the work takes off again, slower, steadier, and with more people ready to carry the map Aisha held up at the start. The world turns, and for a moment, and maybe more than a moment, people remember that belonging is not a place reserved for the few. It is a right held by everyone who sits, breathes, and asks simply to be seen. Ultra-realistic cinematic image prompt. Landing and press cluster. A wide cinematic shot of an airport tarmac at dusk showing a jet with stairs down and a cluster of flashing cameras and microphones near the door. Characters. Suited billionaire stepping forward with a tight smile, assistants around him. Aisha slightly to the side holding a folded boarding pass. A flight attendant standing with a composed posture. Setting. Runway lights, rolling luggage, press tense blurred in background. Mood lighting. Cool dusk tones with warm camera flashes cutting through, high dynamic range, crisp textures on fabric and metal, shallow depth of field focusing on the key faces. Ultra-realistic cinematic image prompt. Trembling hands close-up, extreme close-up of a wealthy man's hands removing a metal watch, fingers slightly trembling, veins visible, watch slipping into palm. Details. Tailored suit sleeve, expensive cufflink, faint reflection of cameras. On the watch glass. Background, blurred crowd and microphones. Mood lighting. Dramatic rim lighting, cold contrast to emphasize vulnerability, 8K clarity showing skin texture. Ultra-realistic cinematic image prompt. Aisha's request, mid-shot of Aisha standing in front of microphones, holding a boarding pass between two fingers, expression calm and resolute. Characters. Aisha in casual, neat clothing, press faces blurred, billionaire in the background watching. Setting. Press area near airplane steps, banners and microphones. Mood lighting. Soft warm spotlight on Aisha's face to suggest moral clarity, natural fill light on surrounding faces, shallow depth of field. Ultra-realistic cinematic image prompt. Agreement moment, two-shot of the billionaire consulting his assistant, then reaching out to sign a document. Assistant's face anxious, billionaire's expression surprised but deliberate. Setting. Fold-out table with contract, pens, and a microphone. Airport floor polished beneath. Mood lighting. Neutral interior light with a warm key on the paper and hands. Detailed textures on documents and suit fabric. Ultra-realistic cinematic image prompt. Aviation Academy plaque. Close-up of a simple plaque on a brick wall etched with the program name including the word dignity. Background. Hallway of an aviation academy with students walking, uniforms visible. Mood lighting. Morning sunlight casting warm highlights, soft shadows to create reverence, high-res material textures. Ultra-realistic cinematic image prompt. Classroom training scene, wide shot inside a modern classroom with the flight attendant teaching, students in uniform listening and taking notes. Characters. Diverse trainees, instructor gentle yet firm. Setting. Classroom with aviation posters, training equipment, large windows. Mood lighting. Soft, warm interior light, cinematic bokeh, intimate atmosphere. Ultra-realistic cinematic image prompt. Captain writing memoir, intimate desk shot of an older pilot writing at a wooden desk, manuscript pages scattered, a coffee cup, window showing clouds. Expression. Reflective, slightly remorseful. Mood lighting. Warm late afternoon light through a window, gentle rim light, cozy texture. Ultra-realistic cinematic image prompt. Auditorium listening, wide auditorium shot showing the billionaire in the audience. Students on stage presenting, emotional faces, Aisha seated among graduates looking on. Setting. School auditorium, projection screen, rows of folding chairs. Mood lighting. Spotlights on stage, soft ambient light on audience, high detail on faces and fabric. Ultra-realistic cinematic image prompt. Final boarding pass still life, close-up overhead shot of a boarding pass on a wooden table next to a cold coffee cup and a pen. Name printed in clear black ink. Shallow depth showing table grain texture. Mood lighting. Warm morning light, simple and quiet, ultra-detailed textures, cinematic calm.